lighting style is different than a lot of people's lighting styles these days, in that I try to do things with one big soft light to one side and then have as much control over the shadow side of a subject as I possibly can. So for me, the meter goes on every shoot, and for me, the meter goes in every setup. Now, I'm mostly a portrait shooter. I love shooting people, and I take the show on the road and shoot people in all kinds of locations. And when you're out in a location, you abdicate some of the control that you would normally have in the studio. So it means that your technique has to be nailed down a bit better than the person who works every day in the same space with the same lights. So what I'm trying to do on a typical shoot with a corporate executive, a CEO like Michael Dell or something, is get in and out quickly, but get results that are repeatable using the light that I like. So I'm coming in with a 72-inch umbrella or Elechrome Octabox, something like that, with lots of layers of diffusion because I want that key light to be soft and wraparound, and then I want the edge of the shadow to be almost black. The other thing is that we still get a lot of requests from magazines and from ad agencies to shoot against whiteout backgrounds. But when we shoot a whiteout background, it's really important, especially if you're doing it in a smaller studio, that you not overlight the background so you don't get a lot of bounce coming back and wrapping around from behind somebody. So we use our meter pretty religiously to make sure that the ratio between our key light and the light that's hitting the background are relatively similar. The other place where I use a meter a lot, and it's not necessarily a style of lighting, but I love to shoot in the streets. I love to go to Paris or Rome or some cool place and walk around with a Leica M6 or a Leica M3 or a Mamiya rangefinder camera and take photographs on black and white film. And most people, I think, don't understand that metering is probably even more important in a situation like that, because either in the studio or on the street, if you depend on the in-camera meters, you're going to be spending an enormous amount of time in Photoshop kind of getting those exposures to some sort of middle ground. Okay, when we photograph executives and we're using a big soft light with lots of layers of diffusion, we've found that it's vital to go in with a handheld incident meter and take a very accurate reading of the tonal values that you want to establish in the photograph. So I whip out my Sekonic meter, and every time I go out with a new assistant, my second assistant always rolls, or my first assistant always rolls his eyes when he hears the standard question, which is, hey, you've got histograms in the camera, you know, you get to see it on the little window, why are you bothering to meter? And the reality is that if you've got anything white in your image, like somebody's white shirt, some white in the background, etc., and it pegs off the edge of the histogram, you have no idea where the established edge of the highlight tones in the person's face that you're going to be able to get. If I go in with a meter, and it's a well-calibrated and known meter, and I take a very specific reading from that person or at that person's subject area back toward camera, and I get a very specific f-stop, if I shoot the camera at that exact setting, when I get back to the studio, all the tones on either side are exactly where I want them. If I try to eyeball it and look at the little screen on the back of the camera, the existing room light, the reflectance off the back of the LCD monitor, the calibration of the camera, all those things come into play, and it gets sloppier and sloppier and sloppier. With any digital camera, you want to be able to nail the midtones and the highlights exactly where you want them. If your safety plan is to underexpose so you don't blow the highlights, you're compressing your shadows. And that's when bad things like banding occurs and lack of detail in the shadows, which makes the file look pretty grungy, which may be something people like. I don't know. The other reason that I use meters a lot in situations like that is that I'm not 100% sold on digital. I've got drawers full of digital cameras that go back 10 years, Kodak cameras, Nikon cameras, whatever, and they're very good, but there's something about the quality of medium format film in an old Rolleiflex or Hasselblad or Mamiya camera that has a totally different look, and it's the way the lens draws. Well, most of those cameras did not come with built-in flash meters. So when I'm in the studio and I want to shoot film for a special effect, I've really got to depend on the meter, backed up with Polaroid, which is soon going to be gone, to get the look, the effect, and the exact exposure that I want to have on that film to go back and do a great scan and then a great print or a great output.